Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to Marriage Refresh TV. I'm Damon Rich, and my lovely bride will be joining me here in just a moment. Man, it's been a while. It has been a while since we have been on the air. It's been busy. It just seems kind of almost foreign because we hadn't been in front of the camera for Marriage Refresh at least in a minute, and so it is. It just seems a little bit different. Yeah, almost foreign. Checking everything, making sure everything, because we're out of practice a little bit. So, welcome and thank you for
Welcome.
joining us tonight. We realized tonight actually might be a little bit short of a show. I realize that there are a lot of you who may be watching this at a later time that are in front of your TV watching CNN and some of the things that are going on in the country. We want to address that. I'll probably be getting on some Damon Rich Speak stuff tomorrow with regard to that. But we are so glad to just be back. Like I say, it's been a minute since we've been online, and it's just So, where have we been for a little while? I did a Dane Rich speech. We're back, and we took a month off in April, but in March. Looks like we're going to take almost all of April off, and then we decided to get on the air.
Yeah, I met the months are rolling around really fast.
They are. Before I know it, I'll be 45. For you know it, you'll be 25.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
what I thought you was gonna say.
all of that. You'll be 25. Before that. So before we know it, so it's really I don't know. Just been a good to have some downtime. Still got a lot
Some
of stuff.
downtime. We were still really busy and we had a lot going on. So
Yeah, we did. We did.
yes.
Yeah, I still need about a week off. So I don't know. I really need about a week off. Got to figure that out. But it has been some downtime, and but still, like you say, very busy. We are trying to get ready to do some things different. I was
Yes.
talking, or I put out there. We're working on trying to pull the couples together, but we're looking at doing a marriage roundtable in May, so trying to see if we can get some couples to get around the table and let's talk about marriage a little bit and see if we can make that happen. We're trying to get that together, but I think that we're definitely going to be shifting into a little bit of a new phase, maybe doing some things a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, before we went on our break, we had planned to have Miss Shirley Pyle on with
Yes.
us, and
Still
we're
gonna do that.
gonna still do that. We were, like I said, had a lot going on, and so we had to end up canceling that episode. But tonight,
All right.
I want to jump into the topic, and we've kind of hit this topic before,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it just some recent discussions of kind of maybe brought it up again, not discussions with us, but just different things I'm seeing and encountering and talking about. And the tonight's topic is covenant or contract or covenant,
Mm-hmm.
like marriage. What is it really?
Right.
And at the risk of maybe dusting off some things we've said before, God created marriage to be a covenant. That's it's supposed to be a covenant. And anytime in the Bible when a covenant was cut, blood was shed. There's some symbolism in that, and through marriage and virginity and all those things that are supposed to be there. But to that end, when it comes down to marriage and when it comes down to um, covenant,
Covenant.
when it comes down to contract. I think that a lot of things, when you start to hear couples talk about marriage, and definitely in the midst of the trials of marriage,
Mm-hmm.
marriage starts sounding less like a covenant
And more like.
and more like a contract.
So would you say you have to be careful because there's a thin line there, or some of the things that we think make up covenant sounds like it's a contract, or is it what we make it to be?
Ah, I think a lot of it, I think that there are some things that are in covenant marriage that you can absolutely look like a contract.
Okay.
I think that's true. I think that's fair. But to that end, just to kind of point that out or bring that on, I want to talk about historically marriages, right? Even from the Bible perspective. So marriages served throughout the history and even in the Bible, marriages served a number of functions. And even in the Bible, not at God's ordination, but even in the Bible, there were contract marriages. So when God was warning people not to marry his people, not to marry outside of, and I know people have turned this into a racism issue, but when God has was talking about not marrying outside of being the children of Israel, he wasn't talking about color.
Right.
He wasn't talking about even ethnicity, right? God was talking about something greater than that. He was talking about something more than that. He was talking about a belief system primarily. Don't marry people that don't believe the way you believe, right?
Unequally yoked.
Well, no,
Well,
see, I
That
don't know
that
about
is
that either.
broader than what we make it to or what we think, because we have just put that as beliefs too, unequally yoked. But I
Yeah.
think beliefs at the core. What do you really believe? Sometimes I think it's too vague
Mm-hmm.
what we say when we say the same beliefs are unequally yoked, because there's so many things that fits in that category.
Well, we can talk about that.
Okay.
We dig into that in a minute. But yeah, so Solomon had a lot of marriages that were strategic alliances.
Mm-hmm.
In order to align with a country, he took this person's thing, and that's something that's happened throughout history. And it's unfortunate because women were used as bargaining chips. You know, it was used as a bargaining chip. I was listening to some things about a lot of the kings and queens of England and how, like, basically they didn't get to choose who they married. They were married based on what was in the best interest of the kingdom, what was in the best interest of the family. It wasn't necessarily that they married for love. And anytime they tried to marry for love, there was they got ostracized for that or lost out on their inheritance or wealth, and they needed to marry in order to pass their, if there wasn't a son, to pass their inheritance down to their husband. What kind of nonsense is that, right?
Right.
So I think that
still to this day, some marriages are arranged.
Yeah, arranged marriages, because even biblical covenant marriages, there were some arranged marriages, but it's not so much the arrangement; it's the why, the payment, the motive behind the marriage. And a lot of marriages had motives about keeping peace. You know, to keep from having war. You give my daughter your son, blah blah blah, and that will happen. Matter of fact, the men of Shechem, they got called in. The guy had basically raped the tribe of Judah, not tribe of Judah, the 12 tribes. Their sister Dinah, the daughter, and they had raped her. And he's like, "No, I want her to be my wife." And it's like, you know, well, to keep peace between us, since she done raped our sister, you got to do this thing. And they were willing to do whatever they need to, and then the men died. But when it comes down to covenant, when it comes down to where I think there's some similarities, one is there is an agreement. In a contract, there's an agreement. In a covenant, there's an agreement. Right? There is usually a negotiation or price to a degree. It doesn't always mean price by money, meaning I said that there's a sacrifice, there's a covenant, there's a cutting of a covenant, there's a process to cut a covenant. It's going to cost you something. Yes, you got to sacrifice something. So contracts, there's usually some type of sacrifice, give and take on both sides of that. But where I think covenant ends is, or where the two differ is, contracts can be severed by a judge. Covenant is only supposed to be severed by the judge, right? That is the judge is supposed to sever covenant. And I think so often when it comes down, I was teasing with some friends the other day, and they were talking about the friendship pacts that people make. And I just read about this like a year ago, and I didn't even know that was real. But the friendship pact was like two friends, a man and woman, and you know, in this day and age, it might be a woman and woman, man and man. But their thing was, if neither one of us is
So,
married
by
by
certain
this
age.
time. We'll marry each other, and at that point it's about benefits, right? But that was I didn't know people like literally really still do that. So you have these friendship covenants or these friendship pacts, and people make those type of pacts, you know. But in a sense, that's a contract. Like we're gonna agree. Like they even negotiate things like, hey, we're gonna get a house. It'll be big enough. I'll live upstairs. You live downstairs. Blah blah blah. We're gonna be in the same house. We're gonna leverage each other's financials. Be able to take care of each other. But really, there's no true connection. Right? And I think a lot of marriages have that. And I think what got me, I'll tell you where this topic came from. I was thinking about something the other day, and what hit me was um, how you respond to your marriage in times of crisis has a lot to do with how you view your marriage, whether it is a covenant or a contract. How and really how you respond to your marriage in times of crisis will tell you whether you believe you entered into a contract or a covenant. And I think that view has a lot to do with it, because if your first option is, depending on the circumstances, again, listen, somebody abusing somebody,
no absolutes.
Yeah, there's no absolutes here. There may be some reasons why it is a good idea for you to get out of marriage and ask for forgiveness, right? But what I look at is if your first option to conflict is to seek a legal resolution, then your marriage may be a contract. If your reason for staying in the marriage is considering the impact of legal resolutions, right? And I'm going to bring up a story here in a minute. Is to consider the impact of the legal resolutions, then your marriage may be a contract. Because when your marriage is a covenant, when trouble arises, your first, and mind you, human beings here. I was gonna say that. So don't take this take it absolute.
When you're in the emotion of it.
Yeah, when you're in the emotion of it. But when you come out of the emotion of it, if the first place you take it to is the creator of it, then your marriage might be a covenant. It's how you view your marriage. And again, you made a key point. When you come out of the emotion of it, how do you respond to it? Right. And if you come out of the emotion of it and you still want to take it to a legal resolution, then your marriage may be a contract. It may be a contract.
Very well could be.
Yeah. You're right. So I was reading a story about Robert De Niro and his ex-wife. And that also, I'd already started thinking about the topic, and like a day later, I came across a story where Robert De Niro is seeking some relief because he pays his ex-wife, like about $1 million or something a year in alimony in support, because she's got to continue to live her lifestyle that she was living when they was together. The challenge I have with it is he tried to do something like cut back her, I think he still has to pay the credit card bill on top of that. So he tried to cut back her credit limit, and she sent an attorney to court. Like, he's cutting back my credit limit, and it's impacting my life, my ability to live glamorous, basically. Whoa, 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 whoa. You know, and I don't know their whole story, so I'm not judging their relationship. But it triggered me at like the entitlement of it.
Right.
Like, when I don't know why their marriage ended, but when that marriage is over, what is the obligation to continue to care for one another one way or the other? Now, we've talked about this before. Man, there's some people, and I don't disagree with them. I think Mary J got the short end of the stick and her last husband or whatever. And people look at that, and I don't disagree that she seemed to have gotten the short end of the stick. But I found more women upset with it because he's a man. He shouldn't ask her for nothing. Whoa, whoa, whoa. When that cuts the other way, that ain't always the mentality. That ain't always the mindset.
Right.
So I just think that so many marriages probably end or not end begin offer contract principles.
Or thoughts, yeah, more so than covenant. I
Right.
think a lot of them, because a lot of times people miss or don't fully understand what covenant is, or hadn't been taught
Mm-hmm.
or explained, or they kind of sort of get it, or hadn't dug deep enough biblically or in the Bible, because marriage is a God principle and a God thing, to
Mm-hmm.
really get the full understanding of what a covenant is and what that means.
Right.
And
Right.
so a lot of times, and we've said this before, when you get up there in front of the judge or the preacher, the altar, whoever it is, and you take those vows, that you kind of skip over or think about at that moment the part, and you go, oh, I've gotten a dress and I brought all of these things and spent the money. I might as well do it now, so I don't look embarrassed or shamed or whatever, or make my family, friends embarrassed. So you go ahead when they say this isn't to be entered into lightly. Oh yeah, sure, okay, yeah, let's do it. And then at that moment, a lot of times, either you're thinking, or people think it before, then that I can get into it, and you already have, even before you say I do, sometimes a way to get out.
Right.
You know,
Right.
or divorce is always an option. Oh, if I get into it, I don't like it, and we don't, mesh, or we don't, the connection isn't always there. Or when the connection goes, we go.
Right.
So you kind of already have these preconceived notions and ideas in your mind, or thinking that, hey, before it ever starts, it's like, oh well, it can end.
Right. And you said something I think that is that, and we've said this before, is people sometimes enter with a plan B.
Right.
Like I enter with a, if you don't get into that without an exit strategy, right? And it's my auntie often tells me, she said that like they were raised as women to keep money and off to the side and what she called a haul ass account, right? You got to get, a woman got to keep a haul ass account. Y'all judge me later, but but she would say that was the thing, because that was the mindset, is you, in case he ever start acting funny, you need to be able to get out, right? And so I think that that's very important.
And that was different in those times, and where those even come from. And I understand exactly what you're saying, but a lot of times, either the woman didn't work a lot of times outside of the home or whatever. So it's like, oh, put something away, because you're completely dependent on them in case at any given point that you need to get out or leave.
Yes, exactly.
And this day and age, it's a little bit different, because a lot of women are more independent or have money, or you know.
Yeah, it is a little bit different, and I just think that like you were talking.
Not that they still don't do it, because I know a lot of people still have separate accounts or still put this away, and it's like, this is my money for whatever or whenever.
Exactly. And this is the thing that I get and I look at and I think about when we say that. And you were talking about hold on, the unequal yoke part. And so just kind of exploring that a little bit, that when people think about unequally yoked, so often the mindset is all about the spiritual aspect of being equally yoked. So let's first dissect unequally yoked. What you have to understand about that is this is a farming term. That's the first thing.
Right.
And what it spoke to is that you can't have an ox where you have one ox stronger than the other. Because for a number of reasons. One, you're not going to get a straight row, because the plow's going to get pulled not in a straight line, because you have one ox stronger than the other. The other is that you're going to eventually burn out the stronger ox, because they're pulling the weight of the plow, the weight of the weaker ox. So you're going to burn out and damage the stronger ox.
I like where you're going already with this.
Yeah, I guess I am. I'm going to shut up and keep on talking.
All right.
All right. So So you get the stronger ox is getting wore out by the weaker ox. Now, you could take two weaker oxes and put them together, and they would be equally yoked because they have this yoke on them that's tied to the plow, and they are equally to their strengths to go and pull the weight of the plow and do what they need to do. Right? Okay. Now, here's why it's important that we look at equally yoked. Now, you can balance out a thing, right? So when I said you take the two weaker oxen, now it's about perception. One of you may be spiritually stronger than the other, but one of you may have a stronger eye on other things that are outside of the spirit realm, just common sense, right? Now we balance each other out to a degree, right? Now, there is the danger that if one is so spiritually strong and one is spiritually weak, that it could wear the other one out. Except here goes the problem with that. If you both are at least in Christ, it says that the strong should bear the infirmities of the weak. So now if I go to that unequally yoked thing, we got a problem. Because when it says let me put it this way, the strong believer should bear the infirmities of the weak believer. But if I go to unequally yoked, we would say the strong believer should stop fooling with the weak believer. Right? My strength. Now, here's where it even gets better. It gets better. I love Jesus in the example he gives. It says that his strength is made perfect in his weakness. I ain't meaning to preach to y'all tonight. Oh my goodness. So you mean that just because I have a spouse that's a little bit weak, that if God has given me the strength to bear their infirmity, that there's a perfection that can come forward in my strength that shows up in their weakness to get them to a place of strength? You still with me?
Oh,
you still like it?
I get it.
All right. So when we go to that,
marriage in a nutshell.
When we go to unequally yoked, we have to be careful to not treat that statement like a contract statement, because that statement alone is a contract statement. That statement combined with stuff becomes more than a contract statement. It becomes a covenant statement. See, when I take don't be unequally yoked and join it together with the strong should bear the infirmities of the weak, and join it together that shows the example that Christ said that says his strength is made perfect in our weakness. Right. Then that means one of us may be built to carry the marriage during the times of weakness. But what we do in a contract mindset is we complain about the weak spouse.
Right.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead. I need some water after that, girl. I feel like I need some water. Let me get my water. Go ahead.
Right. We do a lot of times. It's just so many things because it can be confusing if you don't get full context of it or think about it, because we are supposed to be one forgiving, offer grace. Our first or the first thing that comes to mind shouldn't be and a lot of times I think we jump too soon, or people jump too soon to they're dragging me. You know, when you were talking about the ox or the unequally yoked and the ox. I think the thing here, and a lot of people, and the biggest question I think that we get now is what's too much?
Yes. You know, what's too much?
What's too much?
Woo! Now
it's the weight of it.
Don't get me started on that. I'm gonna go there too. Go ahead. What's too much?
Yeah, because it's the weight. It's like, well, you know, I've done this long, and you know, I've been here and I've done this, and they're not doing this, and they're not changing. I've tried to set boundaries or guardrails, and I've tried to do this, and it doesn't seem like you're having any leeway, or you're not becoming the one, or you're not balanced. You know, it always And so then you see the unequally, or you start to see what you think is the unequally yoked a lot more, or it's more
Mm-hmm.
visible.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you say what is enough,
Mm-hmm.
you know the thing. I forget who said this one time before they said something powerful. They said, if you, it might have been Andy Stanley or somebody. He said, if you are, it goes back to when they said, how many times shall I forgive my brother,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you are constantly trying to find the line
Right.
at which you can quit,
Yes.
you are not sacrificing sufficiently for the survival of the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
God dog it, boy, I'm gonna buy this myself. What is free? So I can't buy it. But listen, if you
Right.
are constantly trying to find the line at which you can quit, then you're not properly sacrificing for the marriage. Now, I'm not saying there's not a line,
Right.
but when you hit that line,
Mm-hmm.
you'll know that you reached that line.
Yeah, I think so.
You don't have to search for it.
Right.
You'll know that you have hit that line. It will be revealed to you.
I think it'll be revealed to you, and then it comes with pure motive, one, and pure heart. And once you have done all that you truly in your heart, that God has given you the strength to do, not what you just think you can do on your own, but He's given you the strength to do, and you've done it out of pure heart, right motive, in His perspective, and not just your own.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just one-sided or blindsided, or seeing it one way. Then I think you really do,
Right. And you know what?
You don't doubt it.
Right, you don't doubt it. And it's the pure. Like, and this is something we always tell couples is this. Listen, do your part.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We tell couples all the time, do your part. One of the things that we really say is, listen, people come to us and I used to have this very strong view on divorce. It still breaks my heart about divorce, but I know that some marriages, bless you.
Thank you.
I know that some marriages are just not going to make it. And to be honest, some marriages you want to just tell people, and we do, run. Like, you need to put your track shoes on, it's time to go, right? But here's the thing. When it comes down to one of the things that we tell people is, I tell people this, like, I don't know, what did God think about divorce, this and that. Now, I've seen a whole bunch of people justify a whole bunch of reasons for divorce and how they get and whatever. And I leave them alone. You do your thing. You got how you feel about it. Here's the thing, that when it comes down to divorce for me, and one of the things that I say, listen, I'm not going to tell you anymore whether to get a divorce or not, unless it's just something real, real crazy. Like, I'm not going to even say that. Here's what I'm asking. One, did you pray about it? Yes. Okay. What did God tell you to do? Mm-hmm. Well, He told me this, and this about the other person. What? Hold on. Wait a minute. What did God ask you to do in the midst of the marriage? What did God ask you to do? Well, He told me to do this. Okay. He told you to do it. Have you done it? Yeah, I did it. Okay. You say you done it. Did you do it the way He said to do it? Well, kind of. I mean, I did it. Oh, so you checked off the boxes.
Mm-hmm. To say I did it.
To say I did it. But you didn't do it the way God told you to do it. Well, Brother Moses would like to testify to you about not doing it the way God say do it, in that it can cost you something. The first time God told Moses that, see, I can find marriage in anything. First time God told Moses to deal with the marriage, He said, I want you to strike the marriage, right? Now, I don't mean hit your spouse, but yeah, not literally, but I want you to smite the marriage. I want you to do something in the marriage that seems impossible, and it's going to get people's attention. Cool, you did it. It yielded the fruit. Now you at that crossroad again. He said, now I want you to speak to the marriage. And you say, I'm going to hit it again. Now, Moses, I'm going to still let some fruit come out of this. But now you can't go to the promised land because you're going to set a precedent of disobedience. Ouch. Now, in the marriage, here it is. God said, it ain't just that I told you to do something. Like God says, pray for your spouse. If praying for your spouse sounds something like, God, I come before you today for this heathen of a husband, this heathen of a wife that you done gave me. And God, I know all things are possible with you. I know that you can save their very soul and make them treat me right. And God, but if not, remove this burden from me, O Lord. God, take this thorn out of my side. I know your grace is sufficient, but I done had enough. If that's your prayer, you ain't praying how God wants you to. But if your prayer is saying, God, today give me the strength to love my spouse the way that you want me to love them, from the heart and love that you have for them and not myself.
Yes.
God, reveal to my spouse through me or however you choose to your love for them. God, be their listening ear when I'm not present or they don't have a willingness to talk to me. God, just give them the outlet that they need to be whole. Now, there's a difference in praying about your spouse and praying for your spouse. But when you're in contract mode, you're going to pray about your spouse every time. But when you're in covenant mode, I don't know if y'all picking up on this, we're trying to tell you the difference between the two.
When you're in covenant mode, so many things are just different. And even if you don't start out with a covenant mindset, because I'll just be transparent, I thought I did, but I honestly, hindsight, I didn't, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But when you learn covenant, when you study marriage, study God, read, ask, reveal to me what marriage really is, you know, in your sight. I can't talk.
No, oh, I'm sorry, babe. I thought I had that down. My bad.
No,
Okay,
that
my
bothers
bad.
me. But see, now I lost my train of thought.
You got it.
But you can't do it one and once stay selfish or be selfish, because Christ is always, or God is always bringing back, marriage is more than just about you. You know, marriage is more than just about us being in love and our feelings and our this and that and the other. When you see the big picture, I'll say it that way, or the whole thing of what marriage is supposed to be, what he meant for it to be, having dominion, being fruitful, multiplying, the whole big picture, it has so little to do with just us. But one, about him and the people and the family and everything that surrounds it. Everything.
And
from the animals, if you think about it and you go back and you read biblically, everything.
Everything is waiting on marriage to get, because I have a firm belief in this. God did not send man into the earth to have dominion. God did not send woman into the earth to have dominion. God sent marriage into the earth to have dominion. The reason the world is out of order is because marriages are out of order. When marriages are in order, proper dominion can show up.
Right.
Okay. Now, I even put that on a kingdom level when it comes down. I'm not saying a single person can't pastor. I'm not saying that you have to be married to pastor. But what I am saying is that depending on what God has called you to, if you are married, if y'all are not doing ministry together, you're not going to have the whole effect that you're supposed to, because the dominion that God has given you to do the work rests in your marriage,
right,
not in your independence.
The whole harvest or all the fruit
yes.
that he wants.
Ooh, I ain't mean for us to teach like this. I'm feeling I might need to testify. No, I'm teasing. Maybe. Okay. My testimony. So our testimony. Yes. So the thing that we want to make sure that you get. I don't know if you picked up. So let's make this abundantly clear to you. Let me tell you the signs of covenant marriage. Signs of covenant marriage is when the stronger doesn't abandon the weaker, right? Signs of covenant marriage is not only when the stronger doesn't abandon the weaker, but when the stronger bears the infirmities, the shortcomings of the weaker. That's covenant marriage. Not only that, not when the stronger lends their strength to the weaker so that the strength would show up perfect. That's covenant marriage. When the stronger, right, or not even when the stronger, when you learn to pray for your spouse and not about your spouse, that is covenant marriage. Let's go forward. When you are able to do what God has asked you to do the way that God has asked you to do it, that is covenant marriage. When Paul begins to say that I speak a great mystery concerning Christ and the church and how marriage is a symbolism of that, everything that I just mentioned is Jesus did not pray about his bride. The Pharisees had an opportunity to join the body. He didn't pray about them. He rebuked them. He dealt with them, but he didn't pray about them. Matter of fact, it's a few times where he prayed over and wept that they didn't recognize the time of their visitation.
For me, the whole mystery of marriage thing, when you just get to that part and read, ding, 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 let me stop. What you mean, by this God? You start to ask the questions to get the understanding and revelation, and that tells you right there that marriage isn't a walk in the park.
That's a mystery.
Yeah. What kind of mystery?
Yeah, exactly.
If you would, the red flag started going out.
Yeah, I don't know about them type of mysteries. Now, them type of mysteries, woo, hey, what's going on?
Right.
Yeah. No, but
then we go back into our feelings, and we in love, and we're in this, and we're in that. And we're not saying that that's not good, or you're not supposed to be attracted or have feelings. And for me, I always tell people it's gonna take all of that and some more. So you definitely need to be attracted, in love, have all the feelings you want, but just not just those things, because it's gonna take so much more to sustain a marriage.
Yeah. The one thing I tell, and people look at me crazy when I say this, I say love is a horrible reason to get married. Yeah. Horrible. Horrible, 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 horrible.
You say that, and I agree, but that's because a lot of times we don't really know the true meaning of love, or know love how God intended love. So that's why we say that.
That's why we say it, because most people, when they talk about love, they talking about a warm, fuzzy feeling. Right? They talking about
God's love.
God's love.
Because he is love. To know love, and this is me and my journey, you have to know God. So when you get to know God and you're on that journey, you really get to know truly his intention and what he means for love. And then when you start to get it, you're like, ooh, sometimes you're doing a lot of really, God, really, and your perspective and your outlook changes on so many different things.
And so here,
the grace you give changes,
Right. Yeah. Here's one, and here's one other signs of covenant. Let me just ask you this question, or I'll put it in the form of a question. Have you exercised true sacrifice? Now, you're like, well, what is true sacrifice? Because in covenant, you exercise true sacrifice. Matter of fact, when God entered into covenant, I think it was with Abram, he didn't, usually as two pieces, they would cut the ox in half. And when they cut the ox in half, they would both walk through the pieces. There's a whole ritual, and it's both parties of the covenant. When God cut a covenant with Abram, he did it by himself. He put a great terror came over Abram. Abram was asleep, whatever. And God entered into the covenant himself, which said, God basically said to Abram, I am solely responsible for the covenant. I am solely responsible. Abram, you wasn't even awake during this covenant. I am solely responsible for the covenant. Now, here's the thing about the question I asked you about if you have covenant marriage, if you're operating in covenant marriage. Here's the thing. Have you really sacrificed? Here's what true sacrifice is. What made Jesus' sacrifice so different from all other sacrifices is that he made it. He made it without any guarantee of a return on investment of his sacrifice. Jesus made the sacrifice. He laid down his life for me. He laid down his life for you. He laid down his life for Judas. He laid down his life for the Pharisees. There was no guarantee, no promise.
No love.
There was no guarantee, no promise that his sacrifice was going to be honored. It was going to be honored by God, but was it going to be honored by the people he made it for? And when you're in true covenant marriage, the sacrifices you made do not come with strings attached. You make the sacrifice that's saying, regardless if they return it, I'm still going to make the sacrifice.
That's why it has to be done with right, pure motive and pure heart.
That's it. That's it. And so that's the thing. I don't know that people get that. Is that when you talk about you sacrifice, if you sacrifice, but you was expecting to get something back out of that sacrifice, then you ain't really do a true sacrifice. Because you was looking for your sacrifice was conditional. Jesus' sacrifice was unconditional. Whether you accept it or not, I'm still doing it.
Right. And not to say out of our humanness we don't appreciate that a boy, that a girl every now and again, you know, or to feel appreciated or whatever for what we do. But when you're constantly have to, even to yourself, and we just talked about this earlier, with self-talk, if you're constantly bringing up what I did, what I had to do, you know, what I went through, what I sacrificed, what, you know, you have to check your motive.
Always have to check your motive.
Yeah.
And you know what's
even, because a lot of times we do, and I'm not saying it's easy, because it is hard, and you do give so much of yourself in this sacrificing in marriage, in a lot of things, you know, but definitely marriage, to you get to where you do question, you know.
Right. And here's the thing that I will,
why am I doing this?
Exactly. And here's the thing that I want to point out, right? Lest we forget something. Because I want to, you know, Jesus, I don't want to erase the humanity of Jesus. While Jesus was thinking about, I want to put some things, just because I don't want you to think that sacrifice is just this easy thing.
Oh, no.
It's a painful thing. So let me point out, I don't want to erase the humanity of Christ as he was suffering and sacrificed for his bride. Number one, he was in the garden sweating blood.
I was just about to say that.
He was in the garden sweating blood.
Yeah. If that's right? Not enough right there.
Right? So he was anguishing over the sacrifice. So husband or wife, I'm not saying you're just going to go in there skipping in, woo-hoo, I'm getting ready to sacrifice. I'm getting ready to go through pain and torment and all this emotional turmoil. I can't wait. No, he sweated blood. And not only was he sweating, he said, God, if it's thy will, let this cup pass from me.
Let this marriage pass from me.
There it is. So you go that person that's sacrificing, you might absolutely go in there during your prayer, and God have to talk to you. And he say, God, if it's thy will, let this marriage pass from me. See, we'll repurpose the scripture in a minute for marriage, because marriage is the fingerprint in the Bible. So God, let this marriage pass from me.
I had enough of this cup.
Yeah, but nevertheless, all right? Okay? So now, you think it's over. Right? Okay. Jesus go, and he started going through the sacrifice process, the sacrificial process.
And I think sometimes, I just want to throw this in here, we do take light of the nevertheless.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Nevertheless.
That's back to the covenant.
Yeah, that's back to the covenant language. Nevertheless. In your marriage, covenant language is nevertheless.
It sounds good when you say it.
It sounds good when you say it.
You're really excited about nevertheless.
Yeah. Wow, nevertheless. And on that, nevertheless. Until you got to live the nevertheless.
Until you have to live it.
Boy, it's easy to tell other couples to live the nevertheless, but when you have to live nevertheless.
Feeling it.
Woo. Okay. All right. We finna, see, we straight up clowning. All right. No, I ain't preaching. I'm having some fun. I'm enjoying this. It's been the first time we've been back together on the scene for this. Girl, I love you. Okay. So now Jesus is going through the sacrificial process. Now listen. Man, boy, I love teaching about marriage. I love teaching the word of God, because I want you to see this. For the spouse that's sacrificing, you're going to get a little upset that while you've been praying over your sacrifice that you got to bring, right? That some people you thought was in your corner they ain't gonna understand the sacrifice that
Right.
you're about to go through.
Right. Not to say they're not in your corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they don't have the insight to
Right.
what you got to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going to get mad at them for not understanding. So now, I don't feel like I got no support. Matter of fact, you done told one of them for the cockthroat 3 times, you're going to abandon me, right? You already told. It's some friends that you already know that when you going through, they don't like your spouse in the first place. They're going to abandon you because they think it's foolish for you to sacrifice. So now, not only am I having my own anguish, now where I thought somebody was going to have my back or somebody lift me up in prayer while I go through sacrifice, they couldn't even stay focused. Man, God is giving this thing to me. Oh, let's go, let's go, let's go. Oh, but I ain't done. I ain't done. I ain't done. All right, we almost out of time, but I ain't done. So not only am I in here saying nevertheless, and now I got to live out nevertheless.
Right.
Then people I thought had my back in that moment wasn't capable of having my back in that moment because they didn't understand. Now, then I get in front of some people who ridicule me for sacrificing, right? Ridicule me, make fun of me. Oh, you talked about, oh, you thought your marriage was so good. Oh, you thought your spouse was so perfect because misery love company. Oh, and you going through this sacrifice, right? You going through this sacrifice. I promise I'm gonna bring this home, right?
Yeah, I thought your purpose was gonna be this.
Oh,
because you always think the purpose is glamorous.
Yeah, the purpose is bloody. The purpose is bloody. I don't know who need to hear that. I need to hear it for myself. The purpose is bloody. But anyway, here we go. Now, people picking at me while I'm sacrificing. Okay. Now I want you to get this. I want you to get this. Now it's time to go to the place. To take me to the brink. Oh, there's some more stuff happening while I'm sacrificing for my marriage. You know what? But remember that crew that left me? Remember the crew that abandoned me? The people I thought had my back, but they didn't have the strength to endure and go through? That on my way, God sends help to tote the tool of my sacrifice. Because as he was toting the cross, that sacrifice, God sent him help to continue the process. Don't abandon the process of sacrifice for your marriage. Do it God's way. Do it, follow his plan. Because when I get to the end of this, right? So here we go. Follow the plan. Follow the plan. And God will send help to tote the cross. Some of you are struggling unnecessarily in your marriage sacrifice because you won't let nobody help you tote that cross. You don't trust nobody to help you tote that cross. All right. So now you get to your place.
And it's not for everybody.
And it ain't for everybody. Everybody can't touch that cross because some people do you more harm than good. But here you go. Get to the place. You're going through it. And in spite of that, God has sent you some help. There's so many points I can bring out of this about marriage that you get on the middle of the sacrifice. It's almost over. And you say, my God, why have they forsaken me? You see this fool over here still cutting up? They down here talking about me. Hey, if you're the son of God, call down the legions of angels to help you out. Whatever. Oh, if God has really ordained this marriage, why won't you do this and won't you do that or whatever? And you sitting up there almost about to buy into it. I don't want to erase the humanity of Christ. My God, why have you forsaken me? Because I'm going through the pain of the sacrifice for my marriage. You might think, oh man, they just over spiritualized this thing. No. Because Paul got it right. He said that it's a mystery. And so you just look at the final outcome. You ain't look at the wedding preparation. You ain't look at the wedding preparation. So now, here it is. Here, my God, why have thou forsaken me? Then all of a sudden, when you have let all of you go, God shake the earth. i.e., your marriage,
surrender it all.
and stuff starts shifting. Things that were a barrier, ripping the veil, begin to be exposed to give you free access to for you and your spouse to connect. Oh yeah, the temple get upheaval in the earthquake, so that old things that are binding your marriage can now stop being a hindrance to your marriage, so that you can develop a new relationship. But it don't stop there. You're dead. You're exhausted. You're tired. I've given it all, God. I've surrendered it all. Yeah. And God says, now I'm going to give you a season of silence and rest. Let me take it from here. Oh, man, we ain't got enough time because I could go so much deeper in this. I'll take you all the way over to Ephesians when he descended into the lower regions of the earth and show you how that connect to marriage. But I'm going to wrap it up here. Because I promise you, I ain't mean to even go down this aisle. I don't know. God, somebody needed this one. So here you go. So now, guess who's there to greet you and tell the good news about the resurrected marriage? The spouse that you sacrificed for.
The one that put you right on.
The one that put you up there, that put you through all of the pain, the hurt, the grief. But when you surrendered it to God, when you said, it is finished. It is finished. God, I am finished trying to rule my marriage. I am finished trying to lead my spouse. I am finished trying to change my spouse. I am finished trying to steer what you have purposed.
So when I surrender and when I die.
When I surrender and when I die. When I go, have you entered? See, covenant marriage. Covenant marriage is steeped in, nevertheless, it is finished in the good news of the resurrection of your new covenant relationship. But somebody has to be willing to die.
Has to be.
Somebody has to be willing to die. I ain't got nothing else to say, because I told you I could go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Whew, Jesus. Yeah. What you got left, babe?
No, I'm just.
Yeah. We.
I'm good. I'm in this process. I'm thinking.
You just have to follow the story. And it may seem like, again, that, oh man, there was so much spiritualization of what was being said, and I think you just overlook it. You don't understand. No, I'm not spiritualizing it. God gave us a blueprint for healing our marriages, and it requires sacrifice. So let me say this.
And not only that, it requires sacrifice, humility, all the things you just talked about, surrendering, death, so many different things.
Yeah, so much. We have to teach this all, just the mystery of the Bible, the mystery of marriage. We have to teach that and talk about this again. So anything you want to hit tonight?
And I think we do sometimes see the before married, pre-married people. Mm-hmm. And our thing is for you to get this and realize this, to say, hey, is this something I really want to sign up for?
Yes.
Do I want to enter this covenant? And then if I do, making sure that you don't enter that covenant lightly.
Yes.
Right. And for the ones already in it, it makes you go and start over or think, hey, we've been operating in this contract, or what we've been calling covenant. And then actually, we actually go back and do the work, to make it covenant.
Yep. Listen, we always emphasize, don't fix your marriage, heal it. What we just laid out is how you heal your marriage. And again, there are no guarantees.
No guarantee.
Your spouse may not even show up at the tomb. But guess what? You'll be at full peace because you have done your part. So, before I get out of here tonight, I want to just encourage you on shirt I'm wearing tonight is from the Till Valhalla project. And Till Valhalla is really about supporting veterans who are dealing. If you look at the back, not sure if you'll be able to see the back grid. If you look at the back, it says it's about PTSD awareness that soldiers go through. The front of the shirt says, "Not all wounds are visible." I think that's a
So
spiritual.
true.
I think that's a spiritual implication there. Um, don't that not all wounds are visible, and that we have people who go and die and serve this country, or they don't come back all the way. They're physically, they may come back, but they don't mentally. And I just like the shirt, and I saw the shirt, and it goes to support our veterans. So, you know, if you get an opportunity, go to Till Valhalla. They hadn't paid me to do any of this. I paid for this. I also have the 22 a day bracelet, and what that is, and I got to get to this, is you're supposed to do 22 push-ups every day, just as your own personal commitment to that veterans are not alone, that they don't have to fight this. And the 22 is that, if I'm not mistaken, 22 veterans a day die of suicide. I believe that's the number. That to 22 a day, 22 veterans a day die of suicide. And they just need that support. They go and defend our freedom, our religious freedoms, if you will, as well, in our civil liberties and things. And sometimes the nation, or not even sometimes, our nation does not support them as they do. I think that if a soldier, as we should, I personally think that if a soldier goes into a combat zone, they come back home, they should never pay taxes another day in their life. If you spend time in a combat zone, I'm talking about you're in the heat of battle, and you see some of the things that these guys have to stay and come back and then be normal. That's why even with Roman armies, if you study history, I'm not a history buff, but I like to study some historical points. That when Romans soldiers, they weren't even allowed to come back into the city, and there was a number of reasons. And one of those, the primary reason, is that they were afraid that they would overthrow the government. But number two is because these were soldiers used to seeing battle. They didn't know how to reacclimate them back into just everyday society. And so I think that our warriors, our military, has these challenges and struggles at times, and sometimes it just goes unheard. It goes unseen or whatever. And there's so many vacant houses. There's no reason that a veteran should not have a place. Now, I don't want to make it, I don't want to say that our government isn't doing anything. Some people choose the path that they choose, and they don't accept the help that's available to them.
Because of the mental state.
Because of the mental state and whatever demons they may be battling. But I'm going to ask you that you would lift up our troops that are back and still battling with PTSD. They're battling with suicide. That you would pray for them, that you would say a special prayer for them and lift them and their families up. I'm going to ask that you would pray for families who have already lost a loved one to suicide because they couldn't overcome the battles within. And I'm going to ask that if you get an opportunity to go to the Till Valhalla Project and donate, buy a shirt or something, that they are trying to do their best to help veterans. And Till Valhalla, I just found this out when I ordered my shirt. It's actually out of St. Augustine. Small business, listen, run by veterans. They're doing this thing to help veterans. So this is just my calls that I'm picking up. I don't know why I picked it up. I just felt led to. But be a blessing to them if you can, or help out, because that's our real humanity. At the end of the day, is helping. Remember, the strong and bears the infirmities of the weak. Listen, our brothers and sisters in the military need us that are strong, us that know God, us that pray. They really need us to stand in the gap for them, for their sanity, for their healing, for their wholeness. So however you can do that, we appreciate it. Again, that's all I have tonight. You guys.
Now, after that, I was going to ask you about your necklace, but now I feel bad about you even mentioning it since you talked about the veteran.
Well, I'll talk about my necklace in a minute. I do have on a dog tag, but it's not a military dog tag.
And
It is my Blessed Her dog tag from my wife's line, and
blessed him.
It's blessed him. Okay. So it's still got the same logo, but it's got a different scripture. It's got Proverbs 18 and 22 on it. And so, listen, She's doing some things where we're looking at God to continue to be a blessing to my wife as she continues to just find that next phase in her career and different things like that. We've had a lot going on, but God has still just been such a blessing to us, and we're thankful for that. So,
right. Speaking of that, I feel like a slacking mother because my son is texting me. So
yeah, he's saying, "What? Okay, yeah." So, that's all we have for you tonight. I'm Damon Rich.
and I'm Tamika Rich.
Until the next time, God bless you. Good night.
Thanks
We
for joining us.
appreciate you. And till the next video.